Welcome back to the Barrel Talk Podcast. We are back with another episode. The playoffs are officially here. We had an insane Warriors-Clippers game to decide the rest of the Western Conference seeding. The East has kind of been set in stone for at least the past week now, but we had a crazy last game of the regular season between the Warriors and Clippers, which led to our playoff seeding, and now everything's concrete and finalized. Now it's time to dive into our predictions. So, before we get into it, make sure to leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, helps out a ton. But let's hop into the Western Conference play-in, which is going to be insane. I think the play-in... Now, before I get into this, 2 48-win teams in the Western Conference play-in, insane. And then you go look at the East, it's like snooze fest. Sorry to those teams that are in the Eastern Conference play-in, but that's what it is. Compared to the Western Conference, the East is so top-heavy, but there's teams in the Eastern Conference that, would be bottom of the West. Bottom of the West. I could say I could pluck, really, the 6th, 7th, and 8th seed from the Western Conference, and I could put them in the East, and they would be better than the Knicks this year, in my opinion. Better than the Pacers this year, in my opinion. And better than the Bucks this year. And those teams are going to be Golden State. Post Jimmy Butler is better than all three of those teams. The Minnesota Timberwolves, I think, are better than all of those teams I just named in the East. And I think Memphis could be argued. So, in my opinion, the NBA needs to take a look at getting rid of conferences. Because there's no way that teams on the Western Conference should have to fight tooth and nail, damn near be 50-win teams getting the 8th seed and the 7th seed to be in the play-in. Meanwhile, teams that are barely scratching above 500 in the Eastern Conference are really chilling. I just think it's something that the league at least needs to take a look into doing. But that's just my opinion. I've always been on the side of maybe they need to take a look at this because of the depth of the Western Conference, and being in the Western Conference is really hell compared to the Eastern Conference. But that's a topic for another day. I just wanted to kind of give my 2 cents on that because I've seen kind of discourse be floated around that conversation in recent weeks, just because you've seen all this hype about the Western Conference and the play-in and the teams fighting tooth and nail towards the last 2-3 weeks of the year for just seeding placement. And then you see teams on the Eastern Conference just chilling because they're either not in grasp of the top 2 seeds in Boston and Cleveland, or they're just not bad enough to be in that playing room in the Eastern Conference. So I think it's super interesting of a conversation that the league could be forced to take a look at, especially if we are seeing this for years to come. If we go into even next year and it's kind of the same case of where it's the play-in is only really valuable for the Western Conference, and it's the Eastern Conference playing teams are just such a step below in terms of the top end talent out there out east. But let me know in the comments what you guys think about that conversation and if it does need to be addressed. But getting into the Western Conference play-in, I have the Golden State Warriors beating Memphis on Tuesday night. Memphis is in a weird spot right now. They just got absolutely lit up by the Golden State Warriors a couple weeks ago. They're just in a weird kind of limbo mode ever since they fired Taylor Jenkins. They've been very kind of inconsistent. Even with Taylor Jenkins, they were inconsistent as well at times. But I think the Golden State Warriors at home will be able to get it done. And then I have Memphis actually losing to the Sacramento Kings, right? Sacramento Kings been playing a lot better as of late. And I just think the Grizzlies this year is kind of a weird season. Losing Jalen Wells for the rest of the year is a huge blow. He's one of your point of attack defenders this year, big part of your rotation. And he's a seamless fit on this team. But I just feel like the loss of him, I just think with all the stuff that they've gone through this year with the Taylor Jenkins stuff, kind of the John Moran stuff, now you have Jalen Wells out for the rest of the year. I just think it's a tough ask, and the Sacramento Kings have been playing a lot better as of late when they've really focused more on, hey, Zach LaVine, Sabonis, and DeMar DeRozan. We want you guys shooting the ball as much as possible, and then we're going to fill in the pieces and the gaps with the role players as well. And they have a sneaky, strong, 5 to 6. I know it's interesting because you had the De'Aaron Fox trade and everything else with that, and this team's kind of been a little bit thrown together, and you don't really have a true point guard. But when you have Malik Monk, who's coming off the bench again, now you have Keon Ellis starting, which is a good defensive adjustment, I feel, for them. And you have Keon Ellis, Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan, Trey Lyles, Keegan Murray, Sabonis. You have Devin Carter off your bench. Now you have Malik Monk coming off your bench as well. I think they have a strong 6 to 7 to be able to get rid of Memphis and advance to the playoffs. Now going into the first round of the Western Conference, we're going to go to the Western Conference first round, then we're going to bounce over to the Eastern play-in, and then the first round, that's how we're going to do it. So going into the Thunder and Kings, I have the Thunder in 5. I think this could be a little bit competitive just because I think OKC has the the Kings have the offensive firepower to make it a little bit of a series, but I think OKC and their defense, they're well-rounded. I think they take easy work and quick care of the Kings in 5 games, but I do give the Kings 1 at home. I think that crowd's going to be rocking for that 1 home game. 2 home games they have, but I think they get 1 of those there. 4-5 matchup. Denver and the Clippers. This is crazy because kind of the same conversation I was having with Memphis. It seems like there's been so much going on behind the scenes over at Denver to where there's no way it can't have some impact on the court, right? So without Mike Malone, I think Ty Lue, and I think Ty Lue was the better coach in that matchup anyways. Ty Lue's easily the better coach over there in LA. And I know the same thought is going on in the back of everybody's mind. When is Kawhi Leonard going to get hurt? When is it going to happen? He's going to come out in the first 2 games and hoop like he did against Phoenix that 1 year, and then all of a sudden he's going to be hurt. But I'm going into this with the mindset of Kawhi Leonard is healthy. And what we just saw today against the Warriors in this past couple weeks from Kawhi Leonard, this is the healthiest I've seen Kawhi Leonard move in years. So looking at that, I'm going the Clippers. I'm going the Clippers in 6, over Denver. I think the depth of the Clippers is really going to be a big advantage in this series against Denver. And if you have a healthy Kawhi and James Harden with the Zubac, and then you have Norman Powell on the back end as well, you really have a strong deep team that can give Denver a lot of problems. They can defend with 2 point of attack defenders and Chris Dunn and Derrick Jones Jr. I just think they are going to be able to overwhelm the Nuggets in a series. I'm getting the Clippers to win this in 6. Now going on to the Lakers Timberwolves. This might be a little bit of a hot take, but out of the possible matchups the Lakers could have gotten in the first round of the playoffs, I think the Minnesota Timberwolves are by far the toughest draw for this team. I think the Clippers one would have also been a tough draw, but Lakers Clippers, I would have loved to see that. But we're getting the Timberwolves, and I think the Lakers Warriors one would have been super interesting. But I just think the Lakers, when they play the Warriors every time, they just find ways to just overpower Golden State because Golden State's not a big team. And the Lakers are just a bigger, more physical team than Golden State, even with the addition of Jimmy Butler. And I feel like that whole series plays out a lot differently compared to a Timberwolves one where the Lakers are the smaller team. The Minnesota Timberwolves, I feel like in this series, unlike a Dallas series last year, because the thought is Rudy Gobert in the playoffs, how is that going to work out? He's going against Luka Doncic again. I think this plays out a lot differently because the Lakers don't have a 2-headed monster in Derek Lively, Daniel Gafford that the Mavs had last year, that they were able to switch and put different bigs and get Rudy Gobert into the pick and roll. I just think this series is going to be a lot easier to put Rudy Gobert in situations and games where he's not getting played off the court because the Lakers are not a big team. So looking at that, I worry about the Lakers defense a little bit. I know they have Luka, AR, and LeBron that have all been playing at a really, really high level. I worry about the defense and the size, and this is a situation to where if you're breaking it down, what lineup do the Lakers put out there to get the advantage, right? Because the whole thing with the Lakers in a series like this is they're just going to go small, right? They're going to put like Bron or Vandy at the 5. They're going to go Luka, AR, probably Finney Smith, LeBron, Vanderbilt. I think that's probably their best small ball lineup against a team like the Wolves. But it's just like you go small, but like the Wolves can adjust and go just as small as well, and be better than you added because they can go Anthony Edwards, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Dante DiVincenzo, Julius Randle, and Naz Reid. It's a completely different situation, and I feel like I'm comparing it to the Dallas series a lot because obviously the Lakers have Luka Doncic, and looking back at that series and how that series ended up playing out, Julius Randle is way better of a perimeter defender than somebody like a Karl-Anthony Towns. So I think the Lakers are going to obviously look to abuse matchup hunting, but I just feel like the Wolves, having somebody like Anthony Edwards, who the Lakers have nothing for, The Wolves, in my opinion, have the strongest 7 to 8 playoff rotation outside of Boston in the entire playoffs. When you look at a Mike Conley, been there, done that before, Anthony Edwards, Jalen McDaniels, who can match up with anybody on the perimeter, Julius Randle, who's really found his stride and role on this team. You have Rudy Gobert, and then off the bench, you have Naz Reid, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Dante DiVincenzo. So, like, looking at that 8-man lineup, I think can cause a lot of havoc and make a lot of noise in the playoffs. I know it's LeBron, Luka, and AR. They've all been playing at a high level, but give me the Wolves in 7. Give me the Wolves in 7. I think this is a very, very tough draw for the Lakers because the Timberwolves have size and versatility on the defensive side of the ball, and Anthony Edwards, he told Obama to stand down. He is going to getting the chance to play against Luka Doncic again in the playoffs, to play against LeBron James, the Lakers team. No doubt in my mind, somebody like Anthony Edwards and the Timberwolves team, with their identity and how they're built, is going to get up to play the Lakers in this series. Give me the Wolves in a tough 7-game series. I think that depth that they do have and that continuity will be the difference maker in a series. Now going on to Rockets-Warriors 2-7 matchup. This could go either way because the Rockets, other than really the game that they played last week where they did a phenomenal job on Steph Curry all game, and the in-season tournament game at the start of the year, the Warriors have owned the Rockets in the past couple of years. But I think this team, this makeup, I feel like this defensive unit and kind of what they were able to do to Steph Curry is obviously Steph Curry. You're only going to, that he's probably never going to have that kind of game again against Houston. But it's interesting to see how they match up because they're going to have a size advantage. They can run crazy lineups with a bunch of length and athleticism out there on the court. Interested to see what Golden State does. I forgot to touch on it really at the start, but Jonathan Kuminga didn't play. He wasn't in the rotation today. I thought that was really weird because he's somebody who I felt like could have been the difference maker in that game and maybe got them out of that situation to be in the playoffs and not the play-in. But I'm interested to see what that happened. That's kind of a side note, but I'm sure Jonathan Kuminga is going to play in this series. But looking at that, it's kind of, I'm going to lean with Golden State in a tough 7 games because, yes, Houston's a phenomenal defensive team, but offensively, what are they going to give you? This reminds me a ton of Kings Warriors from a couple years ago when the Kings first met and they were the 3 seed and Warriors were the 6 seed. Yeah, because the Warriors went to play the Lakers in the second round, and that went 7. Steph had the crazy Game 7 performance. This is reminding me a lot of that. The Rockets, a young team, really successful in the regular season, but they ended up falling a little bit short, and they have all the assets they need to make a bigger move to adjust this roster, even if they want to do that in the offseason. But this reminds me a lot of that Kings-Warriors series, and I'm going to lean Golden State. I trust the team with a better offense and better go-to guys down the stretch of games, with also pairing that up with a top-end defense rather than a really elite-level defense, but questionable offense down the stretch of games. So I'm going to trust Golden State to get the upset done. It's probably going to be a popular pick to see the Rockets lose, but I do think this is a little bit of a tough draw for the Rockets getting a team like Golden State. That, yes, you are a great defensive team, but a team that has a system with Steph Curry, and now you add Jimmy Butler to the fold. Like, I just feel like this is a tough series for the Rockets, but I could see it going either way. I could definitely see a case for the Rockets and what they bring to the table, but I'm going to go the Warriors in 7. Now, getting on to the Eastern Conference. Starting out in the play-in, I do have the Magic beating the Hawks in the first leg of the play-in to advance to the 7th seed to play Boston. And then I do have the Hawks taking care of either Chicago or Miami to get the 8th seed against the Cavs. Going into the 1-8 matchup, Cleveland versus the Atlanta Hawks. I got the Cavs in 5. Now, this is interesting because the Hawks have played the Cavs really, really well. They are 3-2 this year against the Cavs. One of those games was also an NBA Cup game. But they've played them really well. I think the dynamic and the hub of an offense that Trae Young is and the ability to operate the pick and roll does give Cleveland some problems. But the only thing that kills me about the Hawks this year is they made some selling moves at the deadline and still able to make the play-in and not give the Spurs a really, really good draft pick. I believe their pick is with the Spurs this year. The Jalen Johnson injury. I think if Jalen Johnson is healthy with this team and what they were building with Dyson Daniels, Jalen Johnson, Risha Shea has been really, really good. Onyeka Okongwu has his moments. Think even with them selling, I think they're still a really high-quality team. I think Trae Young does get them one in this series. I think they probably get one in Atlanta where Trae Young gets hot. Dyson Daniels has a really, really good showing. Risha Shea maybe have a game or two. But I think the Cavs do give up one here. I do have Cleveland in 5. I think just the talent in Cleveland is going to overwhelm the Hawks at some point. And I do lean Cleveland in 5. But I'm not going to be shocked if the Hawks are able to get one off Cleveland just because of how well they played them in the regular season. And I got to give the credit to Trae Young. Come playoff time, I think he can get them one. Going on to the Pacers-Bucks. This gives me Knicks, Sixers of last year in the first round. That's the kind of intensity I think this series is going to have. This series obviously took place last year in the first round with Giannis being out and Dame being very banged up in that series, but it sucks that Dame is dealing with the blood clots and is out indefinitely. Even if he was able to play, I don't think you would even risk something like that at this point in the year. I don't really even consider the Bucks super contenders even with Dame, so it's better to just keep him out. So looking at that, I think this still goes 7. I mean, the Bucks have really, if you've been tapping into what the Bucks have been doing over the past couple of weeks, the Bucks have really, really been hooping. They had the big comeback win against Minnesota at home. Like, Giannis has really been taking the playmaking side to another level. Like, some of his past game logs, just triple-double there, triple-double here. And the Pacers don't have an answer for him. The Pacers do not have an answer for Giannis, and sleeper, but like KPJ has really, really been hooping as of late as well. It's going to come down to like what can Kyle Kuzma give you, like what can some of the role players give you outside of Giannis. They're going to really, really need to slow the game and the pace down against a high-paced Indiana Pacers team to really give themselves a shot in this series. But with how Giannis has been playing and how the Bucks have been rolling a little bit going into the playoffs, I'm going to say the Pacers still win this series in 7, but I have to give credit and respect to Giannis in this series just because he dominates the Pacers in these matchups and they don't really have anything for him. I think the role players and role guys with how like somebody like KPJ has been playing as of late, maybe if they get a little bit more from Kuzma, they could upset the Pacers in a 4-5 matchup upset, but I think the Pacers still get it done in 7. I think they're too deep for this Bucks team to really mess with, and there's going to be times where I think that pace of the Pacers really plays a big part in this series, and it kind of runs the Bucks out the gym at least one game or two. But I have the Pacers going 7. It's kind of a little bit of a rivalry going on here, and I think this could be another interesting series. This gives me a lot of Philly Knicks vibes last year in the first round. I got the Pacers winning this in 7. Now getting on to Knicks Pistons. First thing everybody's going to say about the Knicks is they can't beat top teams, which is true. They have not been able to get one off of OKC, Boston, or the Cavs. And especially the Boston one really hurt a couple weeks ago where it looked like they had the game locked up and it just didn't work out. They need to do a lot better job of their adjustments because towards the back half of that game, if you did watch it, Jason Tatum just has his way with Mikal Bridges. That is just not a good matchup. Mikal Bridges is a phenomenal defender, but I think Jason Tatum is too shifty and just a lot stronger than Mikal Bridges to where he's able to really pick Mikal Bridges apart. He can put him in the post, hit him on the perimeter. Jason Tatum this year against the Knicks has just been unfuckwittable. So they need to go ahead and address that, but I do have them taking care of the Pistons here. Kind of we'll talk and add on to that when they get to the next round. But I do have the Knicks in 5. I was thinking a series. I know the Pistons just beat the Knicks this past week. OG and Anunoby didn't play. But I just think this Knicks team, yes, they've kind of been a bit underwhelming, especially against the top teams this year. But I think they've shown me enough to confidently take them over a Pistons team that doesn't really have a secondary shot creator in the playoffs where the game's going to slow down. This is Cade Cunningham's first playoffs. I'm not saying Detroit's just happy to be here, but I think this is a really big moment for Detroit to where this still is a successful season no matter how they go out. They were one of the worst teams ever, and now they're confidently a playoff team as a 6th seed. So I got the Knicks in 5, but this is still a very successful season for the Pistons. And then Boston and Magic in the 2-7 matchup. the Magic's defense is definitely going to be able to keep them in a lot of games against Boston, but it's just the Boston's offensive firepower is going to, I think, take the top off at the end of games. I'm going Boston in 5, just because there's going to be a game. I feel like it always happens to Boston in the first round, like it did against Miami last year, to where a team just comes into Boston and then they just rain havoc from 3. And Boston kind of just gets shot out the gym, and there's nothing really they can do about it. What they do to other teams happens to them at least one time during the playoffs. It happens at least one time during the playoffs. It happened with the Miami Heat of last year, to where I think it was game 2, where Miami just was absolutely electric from 3 in that game and barely missed from 3. I think this could be a situation where maybe not so the Magic get hot from 3, but the Magic just have a game where everything breaks their way. I have Boston winning in 5. I just think when this team is fully healthy, I know Jaylen Brown is going through a bit of a knee injury, but even then, if Jaylen Brown is like, let's say 70-75%, you still have Derek White, Jrue Holiday, like Kristaps Porzingis, who's the biggest X factor when he's healthy. Like, this team fully healthy, I just don't think can be messed with. And I got the Boston Celtics winning in 5. Going on to the second round, we're going to bounce back to the Western Conference. Thunder and Clippers 1-5 matchup in my second round of the playoffs. I have the Thunder and the Clippers. This is a crazy series. This is a tough. God, the Clippers match up on paper so well with OKC. It's so tough because I just think that the biggest difference for the Clippers this year and past years is they don't need Kawhi Leonard or Paul George, for an example, to guard the other team's best player. They have, if you watch the playing game today, they had Chris Dunn on Steph. They had Derrick Jones Jr. They have 2 really good point of attack defenders alongside Kawhi Leonard, who is still phenomenal defensively, alongside a Zubac, who's been one of the best rim protectors in all of basketball this year, alongside, even though he's like somewhat whatever offensively, it's just a body out there sometimes, Ben Simmons can still give you a little bit on the defensive end. But looking at this, I think they match up really, really well with OKC. I'm interested to see, like, at this point in the playoffs, like, I hate to bring it up because I said I'm going into this with an open Kawhi Leonard is healthy mindset. But if Kawhi Leonard and James Harden get rolling, this could be a hell of a series. Because they got 2 guys that you can really, between Kawhi, which probably does get reps on SGA, Derrick Jones Jr. and Chris Dunn, they have 3 very versatile defenders that they can throw on SGA. It's not going to probably work, but they have 3 fresh bodies to always throw at SGA. But I'm going to go OKC. From the experience of last year, I think OKC is able to get it done in the second round. This is a very kind of tough Clippers team, kind of like the Dallas team was last year, to where you're like, man, like, if things broke their way, like, anything could happen. I know we've been saying this about the Clippers for a while now, but they're kind of like this Dallas team from last year, to where, like, man, they're really, really good if things break their way, and they ended up going to the finals. But I do have the Thunder with the experience from last year getting through this series. But in this series, this would be a series where you need Jalen Williams to step up. That was the big difference maker in the series against Dallas last year. It was SGA showing up and everybody else was really suspect. They would need in this series Jalen Williams to really come and match the energy and be a big difference maker in this series. But I do have OKC winning in 7. Now on the opposite side, I have Wolves Warriors in the second round. Very fun series. I still just think the Warriors are a move away. And if there was any indication that showed me that they're going to move off Jonathan Kuminga more than today, was when he didn't play. Him not playing in this game is such a head scratcher to me, because I don't know if it was a late scratch or injuries or whatever. He was out of the rotation, but he was in uniform on the bench. So I'm very interested to see if I see anything coming up in the next couple of days about this. But this really puts a light bulb in my head that they're going to try to do some sign and trade with Jonathan Kuminga, because I don't think they can want to commit. This is off-season talk, but I don't think they really want to commit that much money to him, and I can see a little bit of a sign and trade going down. That's kind of my point in the second round. I think it would be a fun series, but I think they're still one move away. I think they're just one more like shooter away, consistent shooter away from really being a real threat in the Western Conference. Again, I think they're a threat, but real title contenders, I think they're still one move away. And this is still, they got Jimmy Butler at the deadline, and they have taken off ever since. So if they go into next year fully healthy, and they started off this year hot as well, they just had that really bad portion before they got Jimmy Butler in the kind of like the December month of the season, to where they kind of took a step back. But this is still a team I think is going to be positioned really well if their main guys and Curry and Butler and Green stay healthy, and depending on what they do with Jonathan Kuminga, because that's still a head scratcher to me. Let me know in the comments what you guys think about that. But I think the Wolves would overwhelm the Warriors with their size, kind of like how we see the Lakers do at times when they play the Warriors. I think the Wolves' size, yes, I think Rudy Gobert would get played off the court a little bit because the Warriors run the best small ball in the league and most efficient small ball in the league, in my opinion. But I do think having somebody like Naz Reid who can space the floor and still be a big body out there. Julius Randle plays bigger than his size. He's more of like a physical 4-man, and he can even play some small ball 5. So it's going to be interesting. The Anthony Edwards assignment is going to be interesting as well. This will be a fun series. I'm going to give the Wolves the edge in 7. I think they match up really well size-wise with the Warriors. I think that size can overwhelm the Warriors in a 7-game series. But like I said, I think this Warriors team is still like one move away. I don't know what that move is. But I just think if they get into a series with the Wolves or something like that, or a series with anybody in the second round, I'm just like, they're just missing that one piece. They're just missing that one thing to really push them back into real legit title contention. I don't know if that move is trading somebody like Jonathan Kuminga, but that's more offseason talk as well. But I do have the Wolves winning this series in 7. Going on to the Eastern Conference side of things, second round, I have the Cavs matching up with the Pacers, 1-4 matchup. This is going to be very interesting because I think the Pacers have the makeup to kind of spark another run like they did last year. But I just think the Cavs, this would be a series where it's like, okay, they've kind of sacrificed Donovan Mitchell's stats for wins at this point of the year, which you take. But this would be a series where I could just see Donovan Mitchell taking over. They don't have a matchup really for Donovan Mitchell. This is a series to where end of game situations, Donovan Mitchell just gets it done. That's kind of what I think of when I think of the series in the second round. The Pacers have a really, really good style. They love to push the pace. But the Cavs can go small and put Mobley at the 5 and just run. I think this is a series where you look at Donovan Mitchell and you're like, man, Donovan Mitchell was averaging 28, 29, 30 a game against the Pacers, and he was the leading candidate. He's like, get on my back, let's go to the Eastern Conference Finals. That's kind of the mindset I get with this Cavs team if they match up with the Pacers in the second round. So I'm going the Cleveland Cavaliers in 6 games. Now going to Boston Knicks 2-3 matchups. Kind of like the Warriors in a way, to where like we've seen the Knicks kind of be underwhelming against the top teams. I don't think that continues. I have the Boston Celtics winning in 6 in this series, but I think the Knicks are still like another all-season away. I think depending on how this team goes out, Tom Thibodeau could be on the hot seat, because I just don't think Tom Thibodeau's style fits this New York Knicks team anymore. I think when you look at the teams that were a little bit undermanned, didn't really have the top-end talent that you would see on this team, when they had Emmanuel Quickley, when they just got Jalen Brunson, they still had Randall, like they had a deeper team that could really guard, but this whole identity of this team shifted when you traded for Karl-Anthony Towns. So I think Tom Thibodeau, they could just be looking to get maybe a more fitting coach. With the market out there now, you have Malone and Mike Brown, like you have Taylor Jenkins, like you have a plethora of coaches that I think would better suit and better fit this team, but I think they're an offseason away. This team is under contract for the next couple of years. I do think they're just an offseason away, and like I said, Boston has had their number. I think if you're the Knicks, you're throwing OG Anunoby on Jason Tatum the entire series. I'm not letting Mikal Bridges even see a possession on Jason Tatum. In a series, because Jason Tatum just looks at Mikal Bridges like food. That's just what it seems like. So I'm putting OG Anunoby, and if you watch, kind of going into my point from earlier, if you watched the Celtics Knicks game from a couple weeks ago, when they were able to put OG Anunoby on Jason Tatum down the stretch, I know Jason Tatum had the shot to send it to overtime, but if you watch that down the stretch, he had a lot harder of a time just getting the ball. OG Anunoby is a lot more physical of a defender than Mikal Bridges. So if I'm going into this series for the Knicks, that's the first adjustment I'm making from playing the Boston Celtics this year. But I do think the Knicks could grab two. I think this Knicks team is still too talented, and I think if Jalen Brunson can really turn it on in the playoffs like he did last year, I think they can get 2 games off Boston. But like I said, if Boston's fully healthy and fully ready to go, man, I just don't see anybody messing with them. So I got Boston in 6. Now getting back to the conference finals, going to the western side of things, Thunder and the Timberwolves. Man, it really, for OKC, it really comes down to Jalen Williams. All-star this year. It really just comes down to him. Because I kind of know what I'm getting from this Minnesota Timberwolves team. Especially from Julius Randle, this back half. I feel like he's really solidified and found his role. But it's just there's times where OKC is so SGA dependent. It's so swing, but we're just going to eventually get the ball to SGA down the stretch of the game or down the stretch of a shot clock, and he's going to make a play. But it's just that's a tough, because Minnesota has defenders everywhere. You have a DiVincenzo, you have a Jalen McDaniels, you have an Anthony Edwards who ain't afraid to match up. You have Nickeil Alexander-Walker who can match up as well. So it's they have bodies to throw at SGA, but looking at OKC and their roster construction, they have a ton of 3-and-D guys, but their offense is drive, kick. Nobody's really looking to drive and attack and score. That's my thing with OKC. Nobody's trying to get downhill and get to the lane other than SGA on this team. And then you see little glimpses of Jalen Williams. He'll have some really, really good games where you're dang, Jalen Williams is and this is an all-star caliber player. Jalen Williams can do everything on the basketball court at an elite level. But it's just the aggressiveness is just not there at times, where I'm just he just acts like he's the 8th man on the roster sometimes, and he's just corner sitting or something like this. And I understand SGA phenomenal season is probably going to be the MVP, and this is a 60-win team I kind of talked about in the one question I have going into the playoffs for every team. Who's going to be that second? Is it going to be Chet? And I think Chet's even in a weird-ish role, because Hartenstein's getting a lot of the work that Chet was doing last year, and Chet's kind of in this tweener role to where he's not really even getting a lot of touches like that for real. So I don't know. It's interesting. And the Wolves, like I said, I think the Wolves just match up well with everybody. I think the Wolves have like I said, I think they have the strongest 8-man unit outside of Boston in the playoffs. Looking at it, I think it would go in terms of the strongest 8-man units where I'm just man, that's a strong 8. That's a tough 8-man unit to play in the playoffs. That can switch, versatility, shoot, defend, rebound. I'm talking everything. So I'm outside of Boston, it's I'm probably taking that top 8, that 8 in Minnesota over OKC's. And I'm looking at the bracket right now. I'm taking the Minnesota Timberwolves 8-man rotation over the Lakers. Over the Clippers will be a tough one, because the Clippers got depth, but I'm still taking the Minnesota. Taking them over Denver. In terms of that strong core 8-man lineup, I'm taking Minnesota. And I think that this would be a series where they would need Jalen Williams, like I said, in the second round against the Clippers, to take over games. There's going to be times in the playoffs, it kind of happened last year, to where, it's going to be tough for SGA to get it going late down the stretch, because teams are so focused and they kind of know what OKC is trying to do. So looking at that, I'm going to lean in an upset here. I'm going to look at the Minnesota Timberwolves in an upset in 7 games over the OKC Thunder. And looking back to last year, I think the Wolves would have beat OKC if the Dallas Mavericks didn't beat OKC. So I think the Wolves are going to get to the NBA Finals this year. I had a hot take that I said the Warriors, Clippers, or the Timberwolves will be in the conference finals this season in the playoffs, depending on with everything shaking out now. I like the Minnesota Timberwolves' path to get there, and I think they match up the best with anybody in the Western Conference because of the versatility they have in their lineup. Now, with a year of experience under their belt, I know OKC has the same year of experience under them as well, but I just think they're a little bit more versatile of a unit than OKC is, and I think they're going to be more built for the moment when it comes to time if these teams do meet in the Western Conference Finals. Now, going on to the Eastern Conference side of things, Cavs-Boston 1-2 matchup. kind of like I've said, Cavs, phenomenal season. Phenomenal season. Boston fully healthy. Even with its 75% Jaylen Brown, 70% Jaylen Brown, I still go Boston. I still go Boston over Cleveland. Think it could be interesting. I think the size, they really match up well because Evan Mobley and his defensive capabilities, you can go small and not be hindered playing a Boston Celtics team because you can throw an Evan Mobley on a Kristaps Porzingis. He has the length to contest shots and still rebound and be able to block shots. So I think against Boston, and we kind of saw this a little bit last year when Jared Allen was hurt, when Evan Mobley was specifically at the 5, he was having really good outings against Boston, even though they were just overmatched in that series. But I think that's good. What they're going to have to kind of transition to is putting him at that 5 and going a little bit small, maybe putting Hunter at the 4, Strus at the 3, Garland and Mitchell in your backcourt. So, like, looking at that, I think there's ways that they can really match up well with Boston. But I just have to go Boston. I think Kristaps Porzingis and what he's able to do for them offensively and space the floor, it's hard to go back to the finals, has a target on your back, but I just think if this team's fully healthy, there's nobody I really trust out east to beat this team 4 times in a series. So I have Boston Celtics going back to the NBA Finals. So in my finals, I have the Boston Celtics, Minnesota Timberwolves. I think Minnesota matches up. Like I said, I think Minnesota matches. They're going to be a problem for anybody because they match up really, really well with anybody. They have the roster to do that. But this reminds me a lot, maybe a little bit of the series of last year's finals where Boston might just outmatch Minnesota. But I think Minnesota has the better shooting to make Boston's defenders commit, rather than the Dallas team last year that lost to Boston in the finals. But I think Minnesota, their thing is going to be how are they matching up with, like, what's Rudy Gobert's role look like in a series like this? Because this would be tough. This would be a lot of, like, kind of Evan Mobley at the 5, like I was talking about with Cleveland. It's going to have to be a lot of Naz Reid, Julius Randle at the 5, guarding Kristaps Porzingis, but being able to close possessions on rebounds. But I think this would be an interesting series. But like I said, I would go Boston in about 5 or 6 games. I know it's tough to go back-to-back, but, like, I just don't see a team. If injuries can happen, if Boston is healthy, I don't believe there's a team that can realistically beat them 4 times in a series. I just don't. The shooting, the spacing, with how Jason Tatum's playing this year, Mazzulla, I feel like, is way more confident as a coach this year than he was even the past 2 years. Like, I think this team just knows who they are. Everybody knows their role. You never see anybody getting outside of their role. They just know what they are and who they are. To where if everything shakes out right for them and they are fully healthy for this playoff run, I think the Boston Celtics are going to go back-to-back. That is my prediction. I have the Boston Celtics winning in 5 games. But that is my playoff predictions. This playoff plan starts on Tuesday. The playoffs are here. Man, what a season it was. But let me know in the comments what you guys think some of my takes are that were wrong, some of the things you agree with, disagree with. Put your predictions down in the comments as well. But thank you guys for tuning into the Barrel Talk Podcast. Obviously, tune in to future episodes.